Hello everybody, my name is Laurie Kirk from APMG in Canberra, Australia, and you're listening to the APMG Midday Mentors program. Now this was established at the start of the COVID pandemic as a way for you to look at and listen to different mentors around the globe. And the mentor that we've got this afternoon for you is Val Pramana, and Val is from Brisbane. Welcome Val, how are you this afternoon?
Good, thank you Laurie, thank you for the opportunity.
It's our pleasure, Val. And Val has now gone from, still is a project manager, but Val has done some very interesting things with the Praxis Framework right through to where he is as an accredited trainer. So it's a fascinating journey. So sit back and listen for the next 15 or 20 minutes and we'll share with you about Val's journey. Now, Val, just a little bit of background for our listeners. You reside in Brisbane. How long have you been in Brisbane for?
I've been in Brisbane for about 14 years, going to 15. So I came here from Jakarta, Indonesia in 2006.
2006. Now you stayed at Brisbane. You weren't tempted to come down to the cooler areas of Canberra and Melbourne, were you?
Nah, they will be too cold for me. I like the sun still. So even Brisbane is sometimes too cold for an Indonesian.
I thought Brisbane would be still cold for an Indonesian.
Yes.
So you work as a project manager, Val?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Great. And your interest in Praxis Framework, when did that start?
I think it's about late 2016 or early 2017. I was working for a company as like an internal consultant, helping them setting up their project program portfolio framework. So I was doing a lot of research in the internet, trying to put together like a specific framework for their requirement, because that's quite a unique company. And that's when I come across Praxis. And I fell in love instantly with that comprehensiveness and the integrativeness of that framework, because you can find all components of project program and portfolio management in one framework.
And one framework, one location, and online. So those three things must have really attracted you when you're working at that stage.
Yes, definitely.
So this gives to think about for people who may not be familiar. If you go and have a look at the Google Praxis Framework, you'll see that it's an online body of knowledge or a complete body of knowledge for the management at portfolio, program, and project level. But its distinction is that it's being created by a community and it has no IP restrictions whatsoever. That must have been something also that would have attracted you in those early days.
Yeah, it was indeed, because then I could use those resources from that framework and start implementing that in this current framework that I was trying to implement. So yeah, Praxis had a lot of input for that framework.
Now, Val, prior to this, you were also formally trained in a couple of methodologies. What were they?
So I have Prince 2 and MSP, which is the Managing Successful Program, MOP, which is Management of Portfolios.
Yes.
And I also have the PMP, and currently working through the ACP, which is the Agile certification.
Fantastic. So and this is where I think you said you fell in love with Praxis, and that's the first time I've heard someone say that. But that's it is. People do look at that, and you're saying that you've got guidance from the Prince 2 world, the Axelos world. You've also got guidance from the PMBOK side, the PMI side. And I think one of the gel things of Praxis is that it's brought together those areas. So I think it provides that integration of those two excellent bodies of knowledge and excellent approaches. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's very true. So I do love it because it provides that one single framework that you can bridge across the differences between the two frameworks. And then you have similar wording which may create confusion in each of the framework, but in practice they all come together into one, and you have one understanding which you can apply throughout the framework.
And that language is important for those who are listening to us. One of the most important things is to get the language right. Project management, like any discipline, has its own language. And I have seen people end up with what I call template tantrums, where they've talked about, is it a stage compared to a phase? And one of the things that Praxis does in that common glossary is it says, for example, a work package says this in the PMBOK, the guidance, and it says this in Prince 2, Praxis is adopted here. That must have been incredibly helpful in those early days when you're on your client's site.
Yes, it was. It helped me to provide our own glossary of terms. So I defined a specific word. This is what it means. Because at that stage, the company is not really familiar with portfolio management and not familiar with portfolio governance. So I had to set up that structure, that board setting, and then extension of board into the leadership team. So I had to provide what we call it terms of reference for those people in the board and people in the leadership team.
And that's quite right. When you find anyone listening to the organisation, if you're in a project management or a program management office, you will find that people will come into your area from different disciplines. They will come in from being trained in the program management body of knowledge or in Prince 2 and MSP. As I said, very good, robust methodologies, but that can cause a lot of confusion and even conflict in a PMO, can't it?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So Praxis really helped provide that clarity that we are now talking in this language, and in this language, in this framework, this word means this. So it really removes all that confusions.
So then language is a lovely segue into the next thing you saw, and you said you are from Jakarta. Praxis has been translated into about 6 different languages. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's in both in French, Italian, Spanish, Chinese, Dutch, and because of your efforts, it's now in Bahasa Indonesia. Isn't that correct? So that's one of these roles. So let's tell us about, you saw the website, you saw an opportunity then to translate it into what was your mother country.
Yeah, so when I was trolling through this website of the framework, I came across a post that the founder of Praxis had put, Adrian Dooley. So Adrian, if you're listening, thank you. So I actually came across this post that Adrian was looking for a volunteer to help translate Praxis into different languages. So I contacted Adrian and I put my hand up, say, do you still need some help in translating Praxis into Bahasa Indonesia? I can help with that. So that's how it all started. So Adrian put me in touch with another gentleman who was already started the translation into Bahasa Indonesia. So that was Dr. Lucas Sihombing. So Lucas, if you're listening as well, thank you.
Yes, well done, Lucas. And now you just made a point there. A lot of people abbreviate that to just Bahasa, but I've always made sure it says Bahasa Indonesia. Am I correct, or should I have adjusted it to just Bahasa?
No, the correct one is actually Bahasa Indonesia, because Bahasa means language. So if you're saying Indonesian language, is Bahasa Indonesia.
Okay, well, great. I've won a bet, because I had a person to say, no, you can just say Bahasa. But now I've got from the official translators that I was correct. So that's good. So do you mind if I do shorten it, however, for the purposes of this podcast? I may shorten it to Bahasa if that's okay for the rest of our discussion. Now, 1,700 pages on a website. Where do you start, Val? How do you start?
Well, I actually didn't start from the beginning. When I joined the translation team, it was myself and Lucas. Lucas had already started with the first section, and then I started by reviewing his translation. And then we take turns. So I translated the next section, and then Lucas reviewed my translation. And we're just going back and forth under Adrian's guidance. We collaborated a lot, and we finished maybe 5 or 6 sections of the Praxis Framework website.
Now, one of the problems you had there, that this is also being listeners to, whilst Val and Lucas had other full-time jobs. So this is done after hours, when you're doing that. But by the same token, one of the joys of Praxis, it is quite a dynamic body of knowledge that is being added to it all the time. So you must have had to continually go back and look at the changes, because there may have been something you translated 3 weeks ago that now has been moved. So having that's another thing, having the page history on Praxis would have been very important for you as dynamic translators.
Yeah, so we started the translation in 2017, if I'm not wrong, and we finished that in 2018. At that time, we had sort of like a locked framework where that's the main articles that we are translating. We haven't actually translated all the editions after 2018. So if you notice in the Praxis Framework, there's a very great edition about the color and the personality types.
Yes.
We're still going to work on translating that one.
So it's a never. So if anyone is listening to this that would like to take that next role on, it's a great way to understand the Praxis Framework. Doing the translation, you must have had a great in-depth understanding of the huge body of knowledge and the wealth of knowledge that is there for everyone.
Yeah, this is not something that you can just put into Google Translate and click translate and copy paste the text. So you really need to understand what that article or that text is trying to say, and the experience in doing project program portfolio management helps you with that. So it gives you a better understand what the article is trying to say, and then you translate that into another language. So it's not really translating as per se, it's more like paraphrasing the article in a different language, because you have that background behind you to help getting that message across in a different language.
So for our listeners, how long did this take for you?
It took us about 1.5 to almost 2 years.
That's an amazing contribution that you've done. It's an incredible legacy that you have provided to your colleagues back in Indonesia. And it's something that I think people don't realise, that there's a great thirst for something like the Praxis Framework, where we think that we've had other volunteers in those other languages, as I've said, who've donated their time. It is a great way, not having to get in. And actually, I don't know of another body of knowledge that has an online translation provided. I don't think it's usually a textbook, a book form or an electronic form in English. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure. I don't think we have other translations.
Yeah, I think you're right. I haven't come across any other framework that's online in different languages.
Yes, but and I think because you've just indicated that the cost of doing that commercially would be probably prohibitive, but people have enjoyed that the philosophy of Praxis is that the information has come in from a global community. It will now be shared under Creative Commons. So you are now giving your time to something that is not going to be further commercialised in the future. And I think that's a really great legacy that both you and Lucas. So Lucas, if you're listening, congratulations as well. Now, the journey didn't stop there. So the web page is translated, and I know that's when I started to be introduced to yourself. You approached us about how could I become a trainer. So what interested you in being a trainer? And also we started to talk about translating the exams. What was your next part of this journey? Where did you want to go?
It started with the discussions with Adrian after we finished the translations. At the end of 2018, we launched the Bahasa Indonesian version of Praxis. But then we kept on talking to Adrian, and what's the next step after this? So the next step will be to translate all the exams and all the training material. And that's how it got started to talk about, well, I can pursue the certifications in Praxis. Then if I pursue the trainer certification, I can actually train Praxis in both languages, English and Bahasa Indonesia.
Yeah, and that's a fabulous skill you got. So you started with the exams, and that's where I came in. And I remember that we gave you the sample exams as see how you go with the translation. And then I believe your colleague Lucas did some quality assurance, didn't he? So it was the other way around, wasn't it, on the exams?
Yeah. So that all started again. So for the exams, I did the translation for the exam, and then Lucas reviewed my translation. Yeah.
And once again, Lucas, if you're listening, thank you very much for the assurance. I'm in awe of people who are bilingual or multilingual, something that I don't have that experience. I'm flat out understanding English in my own area, but it's a great skill that you have, particularly for those, when you said paraphrasing the website, you could probably get away with a bit of loose interpretation, but with the exam questions where they're very specific, you had no tolerance there, did you? You really had to make sure that the intent of the question was accurately put in. It was a true translation. Would that be correct?
Yes, that is correct. So with the exam, the challenge is a bit more difficult because the exams were not designed to trip people up. It's designed to convey a knowledge, and it was designed to elicit the correct answer from people so they get that understanding and they get that knowledge. Yeah. So translating that, you need to be in the proper wording so that message come across in the right way and people can pick the right answer.
That's correct. And anyone who's ever sat an APMG exam, you'll know the invigilator will read that first point and says, there are no trick questions. There aren't trick questions, but there's a subtlety there that may sometimes is unique to the English language, that subtlety of an adjective or an adverb in there that maybe could be incredibly difficult to translate. But congratulations, you did the sample exams. We gave them to Lucas to value, and there were very few corrections. But we couldn't give you the live exams, could we? Why couldn't we give you the live exams to translate?
Yeah, that was a bit of challenge that we had to jump through, so Laurie. So ideally, if I sit in the exam, I cannot have all the exams being translated before that. So what we did is I translated the sample exams. They also helped me learn to prepare for the exams. Then I actually sat in the exams myself. So I sat both foundation and practitioner. And when I got my practitioner certification, that means I passed the exam. That's when I got access to the live exam and start translating the live exams.
And even we thought we'd had it all finished, but even as late as 2 weeks ago, we found one little bit of supporting documentation that needed to be translated. But I think it's finished now, isn't it? I think
yes, it's finished now.
Finished now. That's great. So we now have not only the website, but we also have a trainer being Val, and we have exams that are translated in Bahasa Indonesia, which must really make it more attractive. I've talked to Adrian, the creator of Praxis, and the Indonesian community has been one of the largest downloads, in fact, the largest download continually for the Praxis body of knowledge. So I think there's going to be a huge demand now that people can sit the exam in their own language. The trainer journey. Tell us a little bit more about that, Val. So once you achieved that, what did we do? What did you have to do then to become a trainer?
To become the trainer, the requirement was to submit 4 hours of video of myself giving training in a classroom situation or facilitating a workshop in a workshop situation. So I just realized that I have actually done that quite a lot because I'm also active in other volunteer organizations and which are also about education. And I've been doing these kind of things quite a lot. I've delivered trainings, I've delivered workshops. So when it comes to the recording of myself and showing that I'm actually comfortable in that kind of situation, it was a really smooth thing that happened. It just went like that. And I really get that feeling that all that volunteering all that I did actually led me to this moment of passing the trainer examination.
And that's a great insight too for people who are listening that may wish to become a trainer. To become an APMG trainer, we don't just sign a certificate for people and let them loose. We want, as you said, 4 hours or an hour and a half of focused interviews of interacting with people. And we want to make sure that also you had product knowledge interviews. So not only we have an independent assessor seeing how you engage with a person, but we had a product knowledge interview, and that was also, how long was that? Tell us about the product knowledge interview process.
The product knowledge interview was about maybe 2 hours when I had another assessor from APMG just assessing my knowledge about the product. In this case, it's about Praxis. So she asked different questions about Praxis and how I would implement that in the project program portfolio in the daily life of a project management. Yes. And she also assessed how I would convey a particular information to a participant or to an audience. So she did both ways, the product knowledge and my skill as a trainer in conveying the right information.
That's interesting here because I also was a trainer for a number of years, and you know, that kind of product knowledge interview is it's not just testing that you're up to date with the knowledge of the product, but how do you engage the implementation of the examination, for example. But I'm really pleased that you also brought out that it's how you can demonstrate or illustrate the adaptation of this knowledge. It is knowledge that you're providing, and I think that's a great strong point, don't you think, in the assessment process?
Yeah, so, definitely. So it's about application of that knowledge in real life, in the real situation that project manager or program manager or portfolio manager would face in their daily life.
Yes. Now, times have moved on since March with COVID. We are now classroom training whilst it's coming back in Australia and other parts of the world. There are new skills, aren't there, with virtual learning, and so that's probably another skill that you can have. But I do think your point about having experience in doing different mediums and talking with people and different formats will certainly help you move and morph into virtual learning as well very easily. Would that be a fair statement, Val?
Yes, that is a fair statement, because we're doing a lot of online meeting now and online learning. So I have been giving online training and facilitating online workshops. So that also helped where we are now. And
we have the usual problems like we had earlier on in this interview, where the internet connection didn't quite work. But people, I think, are looking forward. E-learning is good, but they like the aspect that you've got a trainer like yourself who can not only translate in their own language, but give real examples. And having a real current project manager delivering a course, I think, is a very unique proposition for some training areas. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from now, Val? We're just about up with our time. It's been a wonderful journey. Where do you feel that we need to head now with Praxis?
Well, I'm really looking forward in helping Praxis grow, especially in Australia and the Asia Pacific region. So I'm really looking forward to help APMG share Praxis, either be as a consultant when I can help people apply Praxis in their project program portfolio management, or be a trainer to help other people get trained and get certifications.
And that's one of the things when we're talking about Indonesia, where the increase of acceptance of virtual learning and the time frame works, it's about 2 or 3 hours behind. It's probably quite good that it can be done evening sessions, or training like that could work quite nicely for you. So in this time zone, this could be a bit of a unique opportunity for your delivery in Bahasa Indonesia.
Yeah,
so.
It is indeed. Yeah, so it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, look, just to sum up this afternoon, for anyone that's listening, this is a great story of a person, Val, that you've set inspiration. You've been inspired by a project framework. You could see the need. You've come and you've been trained in both 2 different approaches, the project management body of knowledge and also Prince 2. But you saw that how Praxis could really fit that niche, and you also then have given a huge amount back to your community with Lucas as well, the other translator, but you continued on by proving your expertise with the examinations and the independent assessment, now to be a trainer. It's a wonderful story. Congratulations. So,
thank you, Laurie. Thank you.
Yeah, and we hope that you now can, I dare say that it will give us an opportunity to see where Bahasa Indonesia, this might be the starting point, because I'll be very fascinated that we could be coming back in a couple of years' time or a year's time, where you're finding that people are saying that I now have got that grounding in Praxis. I'd like to learn more about change management or agile project management or things like that. So I think it's an incredibly great start. So thank you. Any other final comments? Then I'll close.
No, that's all. Thank you, Laurie, for the opportunity. Really enjoyed the interview, and well done for being a great interviewer.
Well, as I said, it's looking as the COVID is certainly, everyone gets an indication of people's living rooms, etc., and offices. But that also makes the opportunity that the Midday Mentors is about us, APMG, having a chat with some of our global mentors. And I know that people listening tonight, this afternoon, or wherever you listen to, would like to congratulate Val for the dedication that he's done to the project management community. And it is a wonderful legacy that Val has only built on, not only helping translate the web page, but now being the first translator of our examinations into Bahasa Indonesia. Thank you very much, Val, for your time, and we look forward to hearing many more courses being run and many people posting their digital badges from Indonesia. Thank you very much for your interview today.
Thank you, Laurie. Likewise, looking forward to it.